Hello, everyone. Happy Thursday. And more importantly, why you all are here, happy release live stream Thursday. I'm Olivia. I'm an advocate on the vscode team, and I'm so happy to be here with you all today. If you are new to these live streams, once a month, we do a release live stream where we bring on members of the vscode team, GitHub team, and other friends to talk about the latest and greatest that came out with the most recent release. So I see there's already been some chatter in chat, kind of being like, okay, which release was this from? What's the latest? And so this is from, as Matthew said, the 1.105 release, which came out last Thursday, so a week ago now. And so we kind of give a little breathing room from the release to having these release live streams so that people can kind of try out the features, let us know what you like the best, and then you can come here and hear directly from the members of the team who work on the product, and from some of our partners who leverage our product and all the cool features. So I always love having these, like I said, because it's a really great chance to actually interact with the product team. So chat, I already see that we've got a lot going on. People are saying where they're dropping from Redmond, from Argentina, from Berlin. Really appreciate you all being here. Keep that energy going throughout the stream because we are here to answer your questions. We want to hear your feedback. So make sure that you are using that chat throughout, and we'll get your questions answered as we can. Okay, so with that, we like to also start these release live streams just with a really quick overview of our release notes and my favorite section of the release notes. So like I said, this is the September release, which is the v1.105 release, which came out a week ago. You see it came out on October 9th here. So this is all new within the last week, new to stable. And so we'd love to hear kind of what your thoughts have been so far, but you are always welcome to go through all of these release notes and see everything that's there. Unfortunately, these release live streams would be hours and hours long if we covered every single feature in the release notes. So we picked just a couple highlights to talk about in these release live streams for you to check out, but I highly, highly recommend checking out the full release notes so you can see everything that's good. Okay, before we dive into everything, I just wanted to share my favorite part of the release notes, which is the thank you section. So as you all may or may not already be aware of, vscode is an open source project, and we really could not be here without all of our amazing contributors. So at the end of every release notes, we have a thank you section. I like to just kind of do a quick scroll through on these release live streams as a shout out to everyone who has contributed, whether that's filing PRs, doing issue triaging, things like that. So you can see it's always a pretty long list. Like every month I have to scroll longer and longer to show everyone. But from all the different repos, all the contributions here, thank you all so much. If you are watching and your name's on here, we really appreciate it. And if you're looking to figure out how you can contribute, check out our VS Code repo and you can learn all about how to contribute. All right. With that, I think we can go ahead and dive into why you all are here, and that's to hear from some of our amazing team members. So with that, I'm going to bring on Harald as our first guest. Hey, Harald.
Hello.
How you
Hello,
doing?
Olivia. Great. Also, thanks from me to all the contributors. It's been really cool to see the traffic in the open source repo of people helping and the team saying, "Oh, it just landed this big PR from the community." So it's been really always a celebration in the team.
Yeah, I always love that too, because I feel like we'll do oh, this was a really cool feature, and then like people like the VS Code team are always like, that was a community contribution. Like it's always a very exciting moment every time that happens. So yeah, we really do appreciate it. And yeah, it's kind of the heart of, I feel like, why everyone joined the VS Code team. So like just that sense of community is really, really important to everyone. Yeah. Cool. All right. Well, Harald, you are obviously a veteran to these live streams, to the VS Code team in general, but if you just do a quick intro to folks who maybe haven't seen you before on these live streams, and then talk a bit about what you're going to showcase.
Yeah. I'm a PM on the VS Code team. I also write code features occasionally into the VS Code and chat areas, and you'll see me on X and Reddit as well to answer questions. So very engaged in the community, talking lots to just everybody, users, customers, the whole spectrum, and just trying to figure out where this whole AI thing is going, how to make it better. So yeah, lots of learning every day.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, definitely. I feel like people are always like, oh, how do you stay on top of all the latest and everything that's happening? It's just every day you use the tools, you're learning, you're reading, you're interacting with the community. It's a fun time. Busy time, but fun.
Yes.
Cool. All right. Well, what will you be showing us today, Harald?
Yeah, let's share my screen. So I do have a big area I'm looking at is customization, which means like how does Copilot get personalized to you? How does it really reflect how you work versus you telling it all the time, like, this is how I like to work, this is how I do things? Can it become more kind of one click, like I want to do a refactoring, like one click, I want to write tests, and but also even expanding it outside of just coding. So I think a big part of we show like what we have in this like very simple repo, Next.js, where usually I to try out kind of my vibe coding flows of just trying to create UI that's interesting. Also good for me to get a sense of like how good the models are at UI. But every model that comes out has kind of a different sense of UX. Like everybody now knows like Claude loves purple gradients. So if you do anything, you get a purple gradient. So kind of getting a sense of that. But I think what's interesting, so we have these prompts and chat modes. And I think usually people are like, why is there so many? And all of these like primitives have become primitives across other products as well. So they're kind of table stake of the coding agent world. So prompts are basically usually one shot. They just are a user message. So to show you one that I had pretty early on already, when we had prompts like, this is cool, like what can I do now that I wouldn't have done before, would have taken me a lot of time or an extra prompt again. And this is one that I use a lot just to show off like how quickly you can get things done with LLMs that you maybe wouldn't have done before because you didn't have the time. So mockup prompt, you would execute that. Let me close that one. So you would say you're in agent mode. I'm currently playing Haiku, which we just shipped, which is really good at UI as well, and it's fast as heck. So we do markup and just execute that. So that's a slash command. And then we can actually now, so what does it do? It goes to mock up a feature idea using mock data, you get a background using Perplexity, and then you plan and implement. But really just what's needed, really just the bare bone feature. So let's do a classic evergreen vibe coding thing. So we go, again, Haiku. Let's see how good Haiku is at UI.
Yeah, chat, let me know if you've tried out Haiku yet and what your thoughts are, or just like what your favorite model is.
It just landed yesterday, so really fresh.
Early thoughts, yeah.
So you see it basically doing all the things. And what's cool now, so to show up what's new, previously we had a problem that this tools list basically allows you to say which tools should be used as you execute the prompt. And that basically goes in for you and checks all these boxes in the tool picker. What we do now, actually, we what happened back then was we had, like, if you had a search tool, there would have been just search in this list. And then if you had MCPs contributing multiple search tools, which most MCPs somehow have, then you would just have a search entry and wouldn't have enough details on what it means. We now have fully qualified tool names, which allows you to, for example, I can reference the full Playwright MCP. I can also go in and say for Playwright, I could maybe just select part of it. So I don't want maybe I don't want it to take screenshots, maybe because that's too heavy. So I can take that out and then would basically break it out into all the tools. So you could be very fine-grained, but much more consistent and easier to share. Because as soon as somebody else installs the Microsoft Playwright MCP from the GitHub MCP registry, which I'm going to show in a moment, then they can just basically run the same prompt. So now we see. So
if you if you like share out this prompt file and someone doesn't already have, for example, the Playwright MCP server, will it automatically install the Playwright MCP server because the tool is referenced here, or do you need to install it first in order for?
That's what we want to get to.
Okay.
There was a long-standing item on our list, like this should just work. So eventually, now that we have the registry, we have these stable IDs for MCPs, so this can be working now. So let me show you, as I mentioned, the registry, just how this looks like. So you go into the extension view, because that's basically what MCP servers are. They're just extensions. I think the way I usually pitch it is extensions are in VS Code. I usually extend the UI. There are for the user, there's commands, there's side panels, there's more views. And then the view or the tools that come for the agent that's just the MCP protocol. And as a user, you shouldn't really care, like, is it MCP? Is it an extension? It's just like it's bringing functionality into your tool. So I have the GitHub MCP server installed. And this whole view is powered by the GitHub MCP registry. And it uses the official spec, which is cool. There's a model context protocol / registry spec, which this uses to communicate to the registry. So you actually, if you're an enterprise or you run a team that's all using GitHub Copilot, you can actually change the underlying endpoint to something that you're hosting, and you can point people to your own endpoint. So that way you could, we have our own MCP servers, like we want to run those. We don't want to run all the random ones that are like finely curated, but still a lot more than what you probably want. So you can do that as well. In this case, I have GitHub, Playwright, and others. I can just install, uninstall, just like an extension, no JSON hacking. If I still want to go in, I actually do want to go in here just to show it. It's still the same JSON underneath, but now it's a stable ID. We point to the gallery endpoint we get it from. We have proper version tracking. You can still customize with headers. So you could still if you still want to fiddle with JSON, you can still do that. But yeah, so it's been hacking away. So we have it's going nuts on components. So let's see where it is. Actually, can we see how it looks like? That's probably the most useful.
And while that's going, someone actually asked, when will VS Code support more than tools from MCPs? If you could speak to that.
Oh, wait, what's missing? So we have everything really. Yes, most of the MCP clients you find out there only have tools, or started with only tools. Now the support is getting better, but we actually do support. Let's allow this forever. There you go. One tracker happened.
Here be vibes.
Here be vibes. Okay, that's Heiko's design. Not bad. Right. The important part is what happens when I click water. Does it animate? Oh, not bad. I have a streak, log, pretty beautiful. And all this data it was asked to mock up. So it's really good that just, okay, I'm going to actually add a bunch of data so this feels useful.
Yeah, this is a great one shot.
Which is fun. Yeah. It's a lot of 1,365 new lines of code. Pretty awesome. Yeah. So MCP itself has tools, resources, sampling, Again, something roots is a primitive. So if you look at the, let me show that the MCP spec model context protocol. IO. So I haven't looked at the list in a while, so we're gonna all be surprised how this looks like. So this bigger. So this page explains a bit the concepts, but there's a list as well of all the clients. Now I'm gonna just come find it. Maybe Toby knows. I'll let Toby show it. He's also in the MCP steering committee. So there's basically this big list of checkpoints, like who supports what, and vscode for the longest time had all the checkpoints because it was really important to us out of the box to support MCP fully and to the detail of the spec. And now I hear from companies that are heavily investing in MCP, like testing in vscode is our go-to, because if you test MCP in vscode and we know it works everywhere else. So if you want to try out sampling, it's really cool. It allows you to run LLM requests up here. So sampling is this one. Roots is really interesting. What people misunderstand, that MCP is really contextual of what you actually work on with roots, because it understands which folder you have open. And elicitations allow you to actually the server to ask more details from the user without going through the LLM. So some really powerful concepts that people now struggle a bit to make use of, because some have fallbacks. Like if you don't have sampling, you just don't provide the functionality. Like what is a fallback? But it's an interesting kind of conundrum. So I worked on Firefox before, worked on the web. So kind of this backwards compatibility, progressive enhancement is really important to me. But also supporting the specs so people can use these features and adopt the growth. So yeah, this has been working. Just to show another, like what we did now. So I just showed a mock-up prompt, and that like why this is a prompt for me, because it's one shot. Here's the prompt, here's some details, and it ran. It's not multi-shot. It's not like, oh, like let me ask you 3 questions and then let me mock up the first one. Like where should we go from here? Like that would make it a chat mode. If you suddenly go over to multiple conversations, then it would be a mock-up chat mode. But also, these are building blocks, and that's what's so cool. So I now moved this into a mock-up chat mode as well. So we're mocking up, we get a background, still the same high-level idea. But now I have 2 entry points using prompts. So this UI mockup prompt points to the chat mode and says, we want to create a UX mockup focusing on user interaction and visual design. You can mock up the data, but skip backend and testing. And then the other one is code mockup. We want to have an architectural proof of concept. And those are really cool. Like if you want just like, how do we wire up a persistent database? Like what choices do we have? And you can just throw it on the wall, just try it out, like not have big investment because you didn't spend too much time on the code, but also make sure you didn't overinvest and like build out everything. So you just want to get the basics. So two ways to mock up for different audiences and different workflows, but both using the same chat mode that reduces the tools. It still runs it, still does everything, potentially does the research and complexity, but 2 different entry points that slightly nudge it into a different path.
Cool. So you would do just the singular prompt that you demoed if you're just kind of doing that one shot, get it set, like not really scoping with those more specific mock-up subtypes. But you use the chat mode option with the prompt. So combining kind of the 2 customization features to kind of scope it to say, if you want to do that UX one. And that's would you say that's like a recommended approach? Is that just like how you found you like to work? What's kind of some tips for people to use these as building blocks?
I mean, if you know that your flow will be multi-step, like if it's like a typical use case I see is test-driven development, like you spend more time on a task. It's not like the LLM one-shots your result. So the more turns it takes to complete something, the more something should be a chat mode. And it's easy. Like, you can start with a prompt, and then once you see like, oh, this is actually taking longer, and it keeps forgetting what I said in the beginning because it's just a user message, then you want to move over to a chat mode so you get stronger adherence, and you can still combine the 2. Like the mockup, I don't have to switch to mockup to use these prompts. I can just run the prompt, and it will just basically do it. So this is now cool. This is actually because it finished the work, and now it starts Playwright to look at what it did. So
So is that like, I feel like that could maybe be summarized and let me know if this is a good takeaway. You know, if you find yourself kind of running the same prompt over and over again, that makes sense to then move it into its own prompt file. Then from there, if you find yourself doing a multi-turn conversation with kind of that same sort of mode specifications, that's when you would want to move it into mode. So it's kind of like you see how your workflow is going. If you find yourself kind of repeating something or seeing that you need that same theme across things, that's when you kind of look into, okay, this should be a customization so I don't have to keep repeating myself.
Yeah, and there's two areas here. So one is these are all in the repo, which is a high bar. If you work in a repo alone, like you can customize it to your own needs, similar to how you wouldn't just customize CI/CD for your whole team without asking everybody. So it's definitely a prompt crafting exercise to create these. So it's a high bar. So trying out, you can put them locally, but just go into chat modes here and create a new one. I can actually put it in the repo or put it in my user folder. And then once you feel like this is a great mode, everybody should use it in my team, you move it over and just tell people. There's also a way I just want to show you in the vscode repo. We actually have these settings that allow you to put these prompts into the welcome screen of the chat. So that's prompt recommendations. If you look up recommendation, prompt file recommendations, that's basically just an object that allows you to customize that.
Nice.
And that's over here. And that's the settings for JSON that's in the repo. So again, it applies to everybody. So we have that here as well. Yeah.
Okay. Kind of while you're kind of on that topic, there's a question saying, are there plans on expanding Copilot customizations to community/team? For example, multiple repos in a GitHub org want the same set of prompts, instructions, and templates across multiple repos. So not just, kind of that single check into one repo.
That's definitely something we're aware of and poking at. We want to have something that works across the GitHub platform in that regard. So not just solve it from the VS Code way. With this thing, I was hoping that teams that already have multiple repos have a way to kind of coordinate how to get these file-based configs across repos, but it's not very common. So the thing I see is larger companies creating CLI tools that basically say, based on your repo, oh, use Python, you should get the Python instructions and the Python prompts, basically give you some different flavors. But right now, it's definitely more manual than I would hope. But that's something that we're working on. Cool. So you should see more of that happening.
Awesome. Thanks for that. All right. Is there anything else you wanted to cover this morning, Harald?
Yes. So we talked about how you set the mode. This is actually going. It's going to take a summary. We can just keep that and say it's done. So now let's actually. So we did a bunch of stuff. Wow, this is so this is all the things we coded. So let's actually let's pull from main and see if we're all good. I don't know git commands. Again, I wanted this, and this could be a fun prompt as well, just to show you. I do have multiple prompts that are just about Git. I have commit from changes, and there's a make me awesome prompt, which is really good, which I can highly recommend. And then if there's a create PR as well, PR from changes. So all of these are there.
Cool.
So pull days from main. Let's do that because that's always good. So we're up to date. Fancy changes. I guess I should push first. Water tracking. I don't want that. We don't want that. I don't think we want a big markdown file here too. So, but this is good. Boom. Okay, we need to pull first. I guess we can do that. I guess I'm doing it. Oh no, we have a merge conflict. So let's do that. This is part of my demo.
Yeah.
Ta-da! So what we have now. So merge conflicts. It's a tough problem. So one is now with AI creating more code, we have that problem. But now with AI working on more branches, working on more PRs, like that, keeping tabs on everything that's happening. In this case, update some dependency online and a few other things. So I could start resolving this, I don't know which I updated locally versus what's happening online. So I can just hand it over to the agent.
Nice. And this is new in the latest release, right?
And this is new in the latest release. It actually comes in and knows what to resolve. In this case, we actually have protection on package.json. This is why it asks for confirmation, because we don't just want the agent to update these files. So you see these kind of sensitive files, because everything that's kind of that the agent could just run or changes the agent behavior, we want to protect here as well. So that's cool. Yeah, so it just solved the merge conflict. Done. Resolved. And done. Yeah. So that's merge conflict with AI. That's also happened. So really cool agent flow.
Yeah, so I mean, you literally, it just popped up that box to resolve conflict and then just opened it in chat and walked you through it. That's awesome.
Yeah, for the next one, because it was different PR, so I can just go through, review each one of them and make sure they get resolved. So really nice flow.
Oh, that's so nice.
Yeah, again, this looks good. Keep going. Yeah, so that's all I had to demo. Now you can watch me merge conflicts.
Well, that was a great segue into that. So a couple of questions. Matthew's asking a clarifying question. Are these prompt files all markdown?
Yes, you can do so. The basic preps is markdown, so it's very free text. I also use XML text because that's a recommendation, like recommend prompt crafting flow, but otherwise it's usually .prompt.md and .instructions.md and .chatmode.md, just so we can apply the right syntax highlighting.
Cool. All right, and then watch what the health says. Is there any integration with Gemini? So if you want to talk about maybe Gemini models or anything else there.
We do have the Gemini models. I think I don't have them on. Let me go into my Copilot. Yes, we do have Gemini 2.5 Pro, yeah, so, and Flash, but yeah, not the Gemini CLI. The only overlap would be that you can use agents.md to define your instructions, which I don't have here. I still use the Copilot instructions one, but I could move this file up into the root of the project and call it agents.md as well.
Ooh. And then we had a comment saying add a search also. If you want to expand upon that for where you'd like to see a search, we love getting all that feedback. So just let us know in the comments. Cool. All right. Well, Harald, is there anything else you want to touch on or, things in the roadmap? I know we'll be seeing you at Universe in a couple weeks. So yeah, if you have any plugs there for either what people can tune into to watch you at for Universe or just vscode plans in general.
I mean, I definitely recommend keeping an eye on Insiders if you're not using it yet. That's our nightly channel where we're going to talk about Universe. Will actually be visible up front, so which is always a fun time to get the feedback, to iterate. Otherwise, yeah, we're going to have a bunch of stuff. We're going to talk about context engineering, like more customization that maybe came up as, I think none of them came up as questions, but there's a ton of stuff that will show. Yeah, it's always a really exciting time to be up on stage and share that.
Yeah, totally. All right. Well, thank you, Harald. Really appreciate your time. I know we'll see you again soon on the live stream. But yeah, thank you for being here. Have a good rest of your day.
Thank you.
All right. Okay, so that's going to bring us to our next demo, which is going to come from our guest, Tim. Hey, Tim.
Hey, Olivia. How's it going?
Good. How are you doing?
I'm very well, thank you. How are you doing?
Good. Thank you so much for being here. I think it's been a little bit since we've had you on one of these live streams. So if you want to kind of give a little intro to yourself, what you do in the GitHub Copilot world, and what you'll be demoing today, that would be great.
Yeah, definitely. So my name is Tim, and I work on the Copilot team at GitHub in product. I've been at GitHub as a PM for about 3.5 years now, but spent a lot of my career as a developer. And the reason I chose to work at GitHub is that I just love building tools for developers to use every day. And what I'm here to show today is Copilot Coding Agent, which I'll be able to tell you a bit more about, and particularly how it connects into VS Code, which I know you all love because you're all here today.
Cool. That sounds great. All right. Well, should we bring up your screen and dive into it?
Yeah. So I think it makes sense to kind of start by just saying a bit about what Copilot Coding Agent is, because I suspect it's probably not familiar to everyone here. So, you know, agent mode. Agent mode is like your helpful developer agent that's on your machine running in VS Code. Copilot Coding Agent is pretty similar, but the big difference is that instead of running on your machine, on your computer, the agent does its work in the cloud in the background. So in VS Code, you know, it's running on your machine in your environment. And if you shut your laptop or close VS Code, it's all gone. Whereas with Copilot Coding Agent, you delegate work to this agent that works in the background. And then when it's done, it opens a pull request and requests review from you. So it's kind of more cloud-based. But otherwise, it's super, super similar to the agent mode that you know and love. So it has MCP support, it has tools, it can like run tests, run linters, all that kind of stuff. So a lot of the same magic, except it works in the background away from your machine.
Okay, that makes a lot of sense. And yeah, I am excited for everyone to see kind of the demo and see, you know, how that sort of handoff you were saying works between agent mode and coding agents. So people can see that in action.
Yeah, definitely.
Cool.
So the first thing you're going to want to do to get started with this in VS Code is you're going to want to make sure you've got the GitHub pull request extension installed. So I'm just going to open up the extensions browser. And then if I search for pull requests here, you're going to want to make sure that is installed. It's an extension from GitHub, and it's one of the things you're going to need for Copilot Coding Agent to work. Okay. Alongside that, you'll need to have the right kind of Copilot subscription. So at the moment, Coding Agent isn't available with Copilot free. Okay. But if you have any of the other tiers, you will get it. So if you've got Pro or Pro Plus or Business or Enterprise, you get Coding Agent access.
Cool. And can you remind me, is it just, it charges what, one premium request for every Coding Agent session? Is that correct?
Yeah, that's exactly right. So each time you ask Copilot to do something in the background, it's going to charge you one premium request. So you get a lot of usage and a lot of work for one PRU. I can say
absolutely.
That.
Cool.
So once you've got the extension installed, what you're then going to see is when you open up Copilot Chat, you're going to get a new delegate button here. So this like cloud button down in the corner next to the send button. And what that does is allows you to, instead of sending a task to agent mode that's going to run on your machine, it allows you to send it to the background. So send it to this agent that's going to run in the cloud. There's a bunch of different reasons you might want to do that. You know, obviously one is like you're about to go for lunch and you're going to close your laptop, but I find it useful in a bunch of other scenarios as well. So a really good one for me is like I'm doing some work in the IDE, like I'm building a new feature, and then I like spot some, you know, I spot a small bug or a little refactor I want to do. And then at that point, I kind of have a choice. Like I can get distracted from doing the thing that I was meant to be doing, which is, to be honest, often what I do. You know, I'm only human. But the exciting thing with Copilot Coding Agent is that I can hand that work off to my, you know, AI friend to do, and I can stay focused on the task that's at hand. So here I'm just in some JavaScript code that I wrote, or in fact, Copilot wrote for me. And, you know, I have this app that I built, and I think I want to get the credit for this application that I built. And right now it doesn't have like a, you know, a copyright notice. So what I'm going to do is head into chat, and I'm just going to say, add a copyright notice to the bottom of each page, crediting me. And then instead of clicking the normal send button, I'm going to click this little delegate button.
Okay. And
that's going to kind of kick off Copilot to go and work in the background. And that's going to open up a pull request for me and start working on it. So we've kicked that off now, and it's going to run, and I'd be able to, you know, just start a new session in agent mode and start doing whatever I want to do. And then naturally the next question from here is going to be like, how do I keep track of this, and how do I check back in? So for that, you're going to want to turn on a new setting that we have that's off by default. So I'm going to press Command Shift P on my Mac and go to chat settings. And I'm going to scroll down and make sure that this new experimental agent sessions view location setting is on. So by default, that's set to disabled, but I've got it set to view. And once I have that in my sidebar, I get this magical new chat sessions view. And from this view, I can see a list of all my Copilot Coding Agent tasks in this repo that are running. So at the top of the list, we've got this one that I just started here, which has the little, you know, pending spinner, like Copilot started work. in the cloud doing its thing. And right now it's getting all the MCP servers ready. But given that this is just starting work and not very much has happened yet, although it is getting started, I'm going to flip across to an example that I did earlier before we jumped onto this live stream. So I've got this example here. I think it's, here we go. So on this one, I asked Copilot to add a dark light theme switcher to my website. So like dark mode and light mode. And this experience is obviously like very familiar if you use agent mode. You've got this like list of tools that the agent's using, like it's looking through the repo to find stuff, it's reading files, it's like making changes to files. And again, like agent mode, it can run tests and things like that. So rather than just like giving you a PR that's totally broken and then asking you for feedback, it can have like its own validation loop. It can run the tests, run linters, all that kind of stuff. And
because it's running, you know, in the cloud, not on your own machine, it can just keep doing the right. You don't need to like manually allow to run this terminal thing because it's all in an isolated cloud.
Yeah, that's a really good point. Like, you know, when you're running on your machine, we have these like approval steps because we're trying to make sure, you know, you don't want the agent to like run RMRF star on your computer and delete all your files. Like, that would be very bad. Whereas in the cloud, it's got this ephemeral environment that's just created for just this run. So there isn't really any risk or danger of the agent doing anything weird. So we can just give it free rein to do whatever it wants to do. And the worst thing that it can do is just delete some files from a temporary machine. But that means that it can just work on its own and it doesn't need tons of input from you.
Cool.
So this one we have here is finished off and we can see a list of files that's changed at the end. But I'm going to show something more fun. So at the top, we've got this little see more button. And that's going to take me to the pull request, which is available in VS Code thanks to that GitHub pull request extension. And here I can see the nice pull request body that Copilot wrote for me when it was doing its work. It's described the changes that it's made. And here's my favorite part. It's got screenshots so I can see the work that it did. So instead of having to like, you know, I can check this out locally, I can run npm run dev and I can have a look at what the agent has done. But this makes it really, really easy to see what's going on. I can just like quickly flick through, can see, you know, do I like this? It's done Linus versus some guy called Dan. I'm not sure why the agent chose that. The wisdom of Claude Sonnet chose that person to be the person used in the screenshot. But it's really cool to be able to preview it in this way. Now,
well, and it gives you that gut check of like, okay, you know, obviously you'll review the actual code, but it gives you that gut check. Did it actually do something? And
yeah, exactly. You know, you want to look at the code as well, but it's great just to be able to quickly validate like the output. So that's the first thing that I would do naturally. So let's say I look at this and I think like, it's done a pretty good job, but I actually don't like this title on the light mode screenshot. Like, I think the title's a bit light. It's a bit hard to read. So then I can just go back to Copilot and ask it to change that. So back in this chat view, I can say, change the title in light mode so it's a bit darker. Hit the send button, and then it can spin up again and get things going and iterate and come back to me when it's done. So I've got this really nice flow where I can send these tasks to Copilot to work on in the background. I can still be doing my own thing. You know, I've still got my own IDE. I've still got my own branch. I can still do whatever I want. And Copilot's doing its thing in the background and working for me.
So because in that session view that you were just in, it was a coding agent session, that's how it's like coding agent, it then continues with coding agent, doesn't switch over to like local agent mode or anything. It kind of sticks with whatever the context was of if it was a local versus cloud.
Yeah, that's right. And then as you can see in this view that I'm in the agent sessions view or chat sessions view, I've got two sections. So the bottom left, I've got my remote sessions with Copilot Coding Agent. In the top left, I've got local chat sessions. So I can also kind of look at previous conversations I had with Copilot here. And, you know, this provides a really nice way of like jumping back into old conversations, juggling different threads at the same time. I personally like working with Coding Agent in the cloud. I often have like 3 or 4 tasks running at the same time. And then I'm kind of jumping between things, reviewing, as well as probably doing my own work in the editor. So it's really interesting new workflow.
Very cool. That brings us to a good question in the chat, saying that if you have 2 agents running in parallel, do they step on each other's toes while working on the same file? How does that work?
Yeah, it's a good question. It goes back to some of the like merge conflict stuff that Harald was just talking about. So the good news is that when the agents, like on your own computer, it's kind of hard to run multiple sessions on the same code base in parallel because they're really going to step over each other. That's a bit easier in the cloud because each kind of agent is running independently in its own environment. Like each agent has its own computer And just so you know, that's powered by GitHub Actions. That's actually where the code is getting run. So each of these sessions we have at the bottom left, they all run on their own computer. They all have their own branch, so they can make changes to the same code and not have conflicts with each other. Of course, where you might get conflicts is like if those sessions end up touching exactly the same files, then when you try to merge the pull requests, you might see conflicts at that point. But then you can resolve those conflicts in whatever way you want to resolve them. So you can, use the UI on GitHub to resolve them. You can check out the branch and resolve them manually, or you can ask Copilot to help you. And personally, that's what I do a lot of the time.
Yeah. So at that point, I mean, it's then essentially right with traditional teammate development, right? You have two teammates who worked on the same file, and then you have to figure out, okay, duke it out, whose PR is gonna, which teams are gonna make it and do the merge conflict. So it really is kind of just thinking of like, okay, you had an AI teammate put up a.
Yeah, but we all cross our fingers, that doesn't happen too often.
Right.
Even with AI, no one likes dealing with merge conflicts. So it's definitely one of the things that we need to keep thinking about. Something we're looking at for Coding Agent is having like automation to automatically fix conflicts. So if you're running lots of these in parallel, it's likely that conflicts are going to happen. Well, imagine a world where like Copilot's always watching those PRs and is ready to jump in and fix the conflicts when they happen.
Like, okay.
That's where we want to get to. We're not doing it yet, but that's going to be the next step to make this even better.
Yeah. Okay. That's awesome. Alessandra asks, or actually just says, and you can always ask Copilot Agent to resolve the conflicts for you later. So yeah, a great point there. Matthew says, and maybe this is something to touch on, suggest to give each agent their own child branch. So can you talk a little bit more about how that like branching structure works with Coding Agent sessions?
Yeah. So each kind of agent that you run, it has its own branch created. So we can take a look at a couple of these here. So here's my session from earlier, this one to add the dark light theme switcher. And you can see here it created a branch called Copilot/add dark light theme switcher. So we get a nice branch to work from. And if I switch to this other one that I also created earlier, which was like setting up Prettier, that also gets its own nice branch with its own pretty name. So it makes it easy to parallelize lots of work. And it's just ultimately, it's like you can kind of you can run many Copilots in parallel at the same time, and you can treat them all as like members of your team, friends, colleagues, the same as you might have 5 engineers on your team. They're all working on different things. You can have 5 Copilots running in parallel, each with their own branch that they're working in.
Okay. Makes a lot of sense. And, I know in your demo, you kind of started from, add the copyright notice. You hadn't made any local changes yet. How would that work if, right from your previous example, you're saying, okay, you start working on a task and then you need to run from the computer. So you're like, okay, well, it would actually be great if like this could keep working while I was gone. How does that work?
Yeah, that's a great question. We have a nice flow for that in VSCode because we know that's like a quite likely use case where you maybe start doing some work locally and then want to push it up. So the way that would work is you would start making changes locally. That could be changes you made yourself. You made yourself as in like you actually edited the files yourself, or it could be changes that Copilot made for you in agent mode or something like that. And then when you press that cloud button to like delegate the task to the coding agent, it's going to ask you if you want to push up those changes to GitHub. Okay. So it gives you a really nice way to like continue work in the cloud if you want to do that. But you can also start totally kind of separate, discrete tasks. So you've got both of those options there.
Cool. Kind of like your preference of how, what's working for your workflow. Awesome. Yeah. There's a question asking if remote agents work for Azure repos or if this is exclusive only for GitHub.
Yeah, it's a good question. At the moment, this only works for repos that are hosted on GitHub. And we don't have any plans to change that at the moment, but never say never. You never know.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, totally. Cool. All right. Tim, is there anything else you want to show with this coding agent integration story here?
No, that's everything that I wanted to show, really. I think just one last thing to mention is like, I've shown you today starting one of these tasks from VS Code, but there's lots of other ways that you can do that. So you've got, we now have a thing that we call the agents panel on every page on github.com where you can just quickly type in a prompt and send it off. We have an integration with Microsoft Teams that we launched recently. So when you're working with your colleagues, you can just mention Copilot and ask it to do something.
Ooh, nice.
We have stuff in the mobile app. We have an integration in the MCP server. So loads and loads of different ways of sending work to Copilot. And that's only going to grow over time. So look out for Universe because we're going to be launching a bunch of new integrations, new ways that you can send work to Copilot and get it to do stuff for you in the background.
Yes, you'll hear us mention GitHub Universe a lot in today's stream. GitHub Universe, what is October 28th? Is that right? 28th and 29th?
That sounds about right.
Yeah, so just a couple weeks away. Definitely make sure to register for it. You can register completely virtually free, and then you can catch up on all the latest. This is a fun way to kind of do a plug there for, you'll see even more fun stuff there. Definitely tune in. Cool. All right, well, Tim, we really appreciate you coming on. Thank you so much. I hope you have a great rest of your day.
Thank you. Have a good one.
Bye. All righty, that's going to bring us to our next demo with Toby. Hey,
Hi,
Toby.
Olivia. Hi, everybody. How's it going?
Good. Welcome. Thank you so much for being here. Similar with Tim, I think it's been a little bit since we've had you on one of these live streams. So if you could give a little intro to yourself and let us know a bit about what you're going to be talking about today.
Sure. I am Toby Padilla. I'm a product manager at GitHub, and I'm in charge of our MCP initiatives. And so that's mainly the GitHub MCP server, which Tim just gave a shout out. You can actually assign tasks to the coding agent from the MCP servers. That's my preferred way to use it. And the MCP registry. I'm also on the MCP steering committee with Harald, and I work primarily on the open source registry. So we'll kind of talk through all of that today. And Harald gave like a little preview of how this shows up in VS Code, but there's a lot kind of going on behind the scenes that we can kind of dig into.
Yeah, I feel like we got a lot of good call outs and foreshadowing for your session, talking about MCP earlier and the GitHub MCP server. Should we dive into it?
Sure.
Prepared for us.
Cool. So a few weeks ago, we launched our preview of the GitHub MCP registry. And this is a set of sort of really high quality MCP servers. We went through and we found what was most popular, what had the most stars, what we saw most usage from, a bunch of trusted partners, a bunch of open source MCP servers, and we curated them. So this is just like a list we put together. It's sorted by stars. You can see some of these things are like incredibly popular. So the market down MCP server has 81,000 stars. This is crazy, unbelievable, isn't it? And here we are with our 23,000 stars. But this is meant to be a place where you can come and discover this stuff, right? Like if you're looking to use AI tooling and you know what MCP is, you were kind of left to there was a bunch of these different registries and browsing around and looking for them. You didn't know if this was really the thing that came from Microsoft, right? Or if this was the real Context 7. So we wanted to really solve for discovering these high quality servers and verifying the authorship of them. And like I said, at first, this is curated. So we kind of put this list together. And this is the list that when Harald was doing his demonstration, you could see, right? When you go into VS Code and you open the install settings and you look for MCP servers, it's going to pull this entire list from an API. And Harald mentioned it briefly, but the API that we've exposed this list with is actually a standard that we're defining with the Model Context Protocol Steering Committee. And this is an open source registry, so not to be confused with this registry that we built for GitHub. That is in preview, but we're going to try to lock it down and get it in the GA within the next month. And this is meant to be a place where all server authors come and publish their MCP servers, either via command line or via sort of like a CI integration. And then there'll be a bunch of downstream registries that ingest from this. And our registry will be one of these. So we're in the process of wiring up this registry to this open source registry.
Okay.
And the problem that this registry is solving for is that, like I said, there was dozens of these MCP registries, right? And as somebody who works on an MCP server, so we do a new version of the GitHub MCP server, say, to update all those registries is a nightmare. First of all, I couldn't even find all of them, right? I'm not even sure all of the ones that exist. And then half the time you would go to them and be like, oh, email the owners of the site or do something, right? It wasn't really viable to keep all of these registries up to date. And so the goal of this open source registry is server authors publish into this. Anytime you make a change to your MCP server, you publish it into this registry, and then all these other registries can just suck in from there, right? And so this will be sort of the canonical list of the latest up-to-date MCP servers. And all these registries, instead of having to try to keep this inventory managed themselves and create this relationship with the server authors, can just pull from this. And then they can enhance the data, right? If you look at the spec for this, it's pretty basic. It has all the information that you would need to install the MCP server. If it's a remote MCP server, it has the URL. If it's a local MCP server, it'll say oh, this is an MPX distributed one. Run it with this command. Here's the environment variables you need. Basically everything you need to get it set up. But it doesn't have things like star count. It doesn't have, so if we look at this Context 7 one, you'll see that it has the README, right? So we at GitHub have a lot of this information that's sort of proprietary to our platform. And so we extend this API that's defined in this open source project and enhance it with our platform specific data. And part of that is also installing in VS Code and VS Code Insider. So if I want to install Context 7, it takes me straight over here.
Nice.
And then
Okay.
I can install it. Yeah. And so we'll soon, I would say within the next month or so, we're going to wire up our MCP registry to the open source MCP registry. We'll probably keep it a curated list at first. So it'll still be this like high quality list of partner servers. So we got Playwright and Unity. We might expand it a little bit, but ultimately we do want at that point when a new version, say Unity publishes a new version to the open source registry, it'll show up here. So we'll have like live syncing with this data, and then we'll work slowly to expand this, and we'll probably allow pretty much anyone with an MCP server to publish into this. But we're building this very much in the open, so it's like let's put it out there and see what works and what doesn't work. And so once I think we iron out all the bugs, we'll get it all wired up so you can sort of self-publish into our registry. Harald also mentioned this a little bit, but part of the standard is so VS Code and other MCP tools understand how to ingest this registry API. It's an open API, defined API. And so what we're doing on the GitHub side is allowing sort of any enterprise or org admin to go in and set a URL for any registry that adheres to this standard. And then we pass that to VS Code. And it's sort of like this governance model, right? And so you could imagine, I'm a big company. I'm comfortable with the GitHub MCP server and the Figma MCP server, but I've also built maybe like 12 internal MCP servers that aren't going to be in the public registry, right? They're like the finance department's MCP server or something like that. You would have this inventory of MCP servers. And if you put it into sort of a product that exposes in this registry API, go put that in your settings, and then all of your team members or all of your employees or anyone who's in your organization will then go into VS Code and only have access to those. And they'll also discover the internal ones. And so we at Microsoft have this other product called API Center, and you can add MCP servers into it. You can add remote MCP servers. You can add local MCP servers. You can add private MCP servers, and it adheres to this open API, registry API. So you can take your Azure API Center URL, pop it into your settings, and then use that as your governance model and add a new private server, and it'll show up inside of VS Code. So it's a lot of moving pieces, but and it's all very much in the spirit of open source being developed with the community. But like as Harald said, the VS Code is on the forefront of integrating all of this stuff. So it's really cool to see it sort of wired up end to end, where you're a server author and you publish it, and it shows up in all these different registries, and then you can browse through it in VS Code, and then your company can include it for the governance model for how you're using it internally. So yeah, it's kind of neat to see it all come together like that.
Yeah, very cool. This is, as you said, a lot of moving pieces, a lot of really great stuff here. So let me know if this kind of summary is a good kind of high level of everything you said. So we have the GitHub MCP registry, which in its current state is a GitHub specific curated directory of MCP servers. That's not necessarily static, but it's kind of like requires GitHub maintenance to go in and update it and things like that. Whereas we then have the open, MCP registry, thank you, which is still kind of in this experimental state. And that the kind of vision there is to have those community contributions and for the GitHub MCP registry to ingest from that, so it become a little bit more of a living directory, and it can be more of that community driven directory. And on top of that, you have the option to kind of essentially use that API Center they're talking about to create your own internal curated list of allowed MCP servers. Is that a good summary of each offering? Okay.
Yeah, exactly. And this as well, so you can play around with it. We got this kind of like Swagger-esque interactive API Explorer. It was never a goal of the open source registry to have like a front end or for end users to hit it. The idea is it's for the server authors to publish, right? And you'll see other downstream registries, so not just the GitHub registry. Goose, our friends at Goose and Block have like a Goose extensions marketplace. They're also going to pool from this. And so once you publish into the open source registry, you can expect to show up in a bunch of these sort of like platform specific registries. And I should point out as well that in this, if you go to the releases, you'll find the command line tool to publish. And one of the things that we're doing, one of the goals of this registry is to verify that you are who you say you are, right? So some random person can't come and publish like a new version of the GitHub MCP server. And there's a few ways we're doing that. One is that we're leaning on GitHub to do that. So if you have a GitHub repo, we'll do the OAuth flow for GitHub and make sure that you are actually the owner of that repo. And so you'll be able to publish the MCP server from that repo. But if you don't want to use GitHub, you can also use the DNS text records for verification. So we have like all these guides and how you want to publish and stuff. And so if you look at like publishing a server here, there's all these different options for it. And you'll see like you can put in a URL if you want to for all this. So lots of different options there. But I think that in the end, if you stick on GitHub, you're going to get a really nice experience because you can just put your MCP server on GitHub, use the GitHub OAuth to publish to the open source repo, eventually show up in the GitHub MCP registry, show up in vscode, and have just millions of people be able to install your MCP server. So it's a really great method for distribution and sort of discovery of MCP servers.
Awesome. Yeah. I'm glad that you emphasize that feature because I think that that's always kind of, a concern is how do I know the MCP server I'm doing is legit when I'm going to give it all these tools, access to my code base. And so I think that's a really great call out and important to make sure that people understand is very much at the forefront of, the steering committee's mind.
Exactly. It's a risk, right? Like you don't want the agent publishing stuff where it shouldn't go. So verifying that authorship is really critical.
Awesome. Cool. All right. Anything else you'd like to share high level about MCP registry or showcase?
No, that's pretty much it. I would say there's a Discord for the MCP steering committee and for the open source community, and I'd encourage everyone to go in there and give us your feedback, like kick the tires on this thing and tell us what works, what doesn't work, what you'd like to see. There's a bunch of other stuff in that Discord as well. So there's like clients and SDKs and just discussion about the protocol. So if you want to engage and help put in your 2 cents about how all this stuff should work, then I'd recommend doing that.
Awesome. Cool. We'll make sure that those links are included in the show notes of this live stream. So check back after this. We'll make sure those are added in. Awesome. All right. Well, Toby, if that's it, really appreciate you taking a chance to kind of walk us through that. I know that this was a really cool thing people are so excited for, and just kind of walking through the nuances of all the different options that people have, and also talking about the roadmap of where we want this to go, and just really leaning into that open community is always really great to see. And I think that's one of the coolest things I think about GitHub, about vscode, is just really believing about building in the open. So I really appreciate you taking the time to be here about this.
Yeah, sounds great.
All right. Well, thank you, Toby. Have a great rest of your day. We appreciate you.
Thank you.
Bye. All right. That is going to bring us to our next and final demo from our friend at Figma, Akbar.
Hey everyone, I'm Akbar. I'm a developer advocate here at Figma, and I'm here to talk about the Figma MCP server.
Awesome.
And we were here not a couple of months ago, and so I just wanted to do a quick refresher on what exactly the MCP server is.
Okay, let's do it.
So the Figma MCP server allows us to bring design intent and Figma context for design-informed code gen. And so in today's world, we're already able to get to a really good place with code generation and bringing in code-based context from something like GitHub and Copilot. And the really final missing piece here is making sure that these the designs that we output look and feel like our design systems and have all of that context in there. And so with all of that design context, including what those design components look like, maybe even where how those design components are linked to a relevant code component, we're able to get one step even closer to like really strong production code, so that instead of like maybe 70% of the way there, you're closer to 80, 85, 90%, and more better one shots, but also better continued refined iterations. And so since the last time we were here, we've done a lot of releases, but wanted to just kind of talk about what some of those are, including the launch of our remote server in beta. We have larger selections now. We have some tools for creating design system rules, some performance improvements overall, Code Connect UI, and as well as bringing the Figma MCP to Figma Make. Today, we're going to focus on the remote server specifically, but just wanted to kind of prime what we're going to be talking about.
Awesome.
So now I'm going to go ahead and just share my screen. And we're just going to talk about how the Figma remote MCP works. So as always, because we're talking about Figma, we're going to start from a design. I'm going to do this one from scratch where we have this design over here. If I deselect this, you'll see the MCP server and the beta tag. You'll even see clients, and you'll see Visual Studio Code over here. This is
it looks like we're seeing the StreamYard instance right now on your screen instead of VS Code.
Sorry, what was that?
It's like showing StreamYard instead of VS Code on your screen. So
weird.
Like which desktops, yeah.
Let me entire screen. Do you see Figma?
That looks good now.
Okay,
cool.
Sorry. As always, we're starting off in the design file. We're going to have this design that we're starting from scratch. You'll notice on the right-hand sidebar that we have the MCP server here and the clients that are set up. I've set up the Visual Studio Code Insiders build over here. And so what I'm going to do is I'm actually just going to click on this file, and I'm going to copy the link to the selection. Now that I have this, I'm going to go over and switch over to VS Code. As Toby was talking about the MCP server registry, this is actually the server registry for Figma. Down here, you can even see some more details about how to set up the remote versus the local server. So this is the remote server versus the local one. Today, we're using the remote one, as indicated by me using Figma in the browser instead of the desktop app. And that's what this setup in the server configuration looks like. And I'm going to make sure that that server is running. MCP list servers. We have Figma right here, and let's start that server. So it's running. It's discovered some 4 tools. And you'll also notice that I'm in an empty repository. So I'm starting completely from scratch. And what I'm going to do is I'm just going to ask our Copilot agent, I'm using the Sonic 4 model, can you implement my design as a responsive website? Now, this is very minimal information. So I don't expect this to be super polished. But what I'm trying to demonstrate here is just how much information and context that we're getting just from our design.
Mm-hmm.
And so as this is running, you'll notice that we're running some of our tools. We have something called get design context. And what this does is it provides a pseudocode representation of our design that our LLM is able to parse. You'll notice that it has the assets, the image assets that are coming directly from their design file. You'll notice that it's just kind of like breaking down our design, and it's representing it in this kind of React Tailwind pseudocode. And I want to be really clear in that this is just a representation of what the design context is, and this is not actually the code that will be generated by your LLM. So this helps your LLM understand what's happening here. And one thing that I also wanted to call out here, let's see if we can find it here, is annotations. Things like this interaction annotation will also be carried over in that context. And let me see if I can find that here.
I pulled that in so quickly too. It got all that context really quickly.
So we've been working on improving that performance. And one really neat thing is if you're on the desktop app, when you're making a selection, we actually predict how many tokens it'll take up.
Oh, very nice. Yeah, I'm glad that you're kind of showing that expanded output too, because I think a lot of times people don't realize that you can actually look behind the scenes at like what actually happened. And so that's really cool.
Getting a little tough to find that annotations boat here. Actually, I can usually find it. It looks like Command F's not working here, but it's in there, I promise. And down here, you'll also see some of the styles that are being referenced here, right? Okay. So you'll notice that these are the variables. These are like the values of what those variables are, like the font family and all that stuff. And this is coming directly from our selection.
Okay.
Then after that, we're running a get screenshot tool. So not only are we getting that full design context, the layer metadata, we're also getting like a visual representation of what this design should look like. And so now you can see, let's go ahead and allow that. Now you can see that our agent is understanding that this is a travel blog layout. It's understanding the colors here. And now it's going to go ahead and download some of those images. I should have kind of allowed all of the things in this session. Let me just go ahead and do that. Enable auto approve, enable allow. And so now it's going to go through and it's going to start downloading all of those image assets. And what's really nice about this is that anything that was originally in your design file is completely accessible to you. So not only is it these images, but if there are any assets that are like icons, specially designed vectors, all of those will also come through via the remote MCP server.
Oh, very nice. And it just pulls that all from that single link.
Exactly.
That you gave. Wow.
Yeah. And so that was the get screenshot and that info. And like that gives it all the information about where these assets are stored and how they can download them.
Okay. And you're authenticated through Figma
Exactly.
right now, right?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Mhm.
Yeah. So I definitely skipped that authentication side of things just so we didn't have to go
Yeah.
through
We don't have to see the
world.
screen. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. Uh-huh.
And now you'll see that it's gone through and it's created the HTML structure. We can look at that HTML file over here. I'm going to go ahead and close this out, make this a little bit clearer. And you can see the HTML here that's representing the different parts of our article. And you might notice that there's some semantic HTML here, but there's also some that's not. And a lot of that I would attribute to just kind of the prompt that I gave it, very minimal instructions. But this is something that you can continue to refine and iterate on by providing instructions, by providing a deeper prompt, and also through things like Code Connect that allow you to use the actual components that you have in your code base. This is an example coming completely from scratch. I also have one that uses a underlying code base that if we have time, I'll get into.
Cool. Yeah, that sounds great. There are a couple questions if now's a good time to ask them. So Marshall asked a couple questions. Does the Figma local MCP server work offline?
Yeah, so the local MCP server works offline with the Figma desktop app. As long as everything is accessible to you on the desktop app, then you'll be able to use the local server.
Okay, awesome. And then kind of talking about authentication again. If you just reiterate, are those assets beyond some sort of authentication layer when it's downloading?
Yeah. So what I didn't show was that in order to get the remote server to work, you have to authenticate and authorize your account, and you'll only have access to files that you are authenticated for. So files that you have permissions for, you'll be able to see. You'll even notice now that we're showing a simple preview. This is opening up in the simple browser extension. I'm actually going to open this up just in my localhost. And you can see that this is already from scratch, pretty solid, right? Like, hopefully, let's see if it's even responsive. Let's see that. Oh, great. This worked out even better than I thought it was going to. And you'll notice there's some nice transitions. That annotation that I had about making sure that when we're hovering, there's like a darker state here. That's also happening here. And you'll notice I gave it very minimal information, very minimal information from our prompt. And this already gives us a great place to kind of start from. At the end, our agent is telling us what exactly it did, provided some responsive design, using the styling, all that stuff. And we can go ahead and keep this. We've seen it work. And this is already just kind of such a great starting point. I want to take a moment just to answer any questions that have come through.
I think that we covered those couple ones that have come through, but chat, if you have any other ones, definitely let us know. I just feel like every time I see the Figma MCP server demoed, I'm always just like blown away because it's like, really, it's not going to be able to pull all that in and create a functioning app, and then it does.
It's funny because like I also have that moment myself when I'm like, whenever I'm running tests and I'm like, okay, this is interesting, this is cool, and I've seen it so many times that I get disillusioned sometimes, and then you have a moment like this where it's like it came through exactly as I wanted it perfectly.
Okay, there's one question. I'm not a front person or design person, so I don't know what this means. Does it make HTML WCAG compliant?
So that is where I would kind of refer to one, making sure that your prompt and your instructions bring that in. And I will go ahead and kind of show a little example of that right now, which is what we're providing right now is just design context. And then the actual code generation is happening from your LLM. So this is something that, again, I want to really reiterate. Like, we're providing design context and design information of what exists. And then the actual code generation is up to the LLM and the model that you're using.
And then you can like iterate over it and be like, okay, can you make this compliant? Okay.
And so as these models continue to get better, and as you prompt it very specifically or provide very specific instructions, that those are the kinds of guardrails that you can put in and make sure that your output matches exactly all the different criteria that you want it to.
Okay, that makes a lot of sense.
Yeah, awesome. So I'm going to go ahead and close this browser, and I'm going to go into this file for. I had a pre-bake, and we don't even need to use it. That's
Love that. It's always the time when you don't, though, that everything goes haywire.
100%. It's always better to be prepared than not, right?
Yeah.
And so now I'm going to show this example using our design system called Simple Design System. And so this is a built-out design system. It has code components that are tied to it. As I explore some of these, you'll notice that we have like all these different components. There is even like these React code snippets, right? This is stuff that we've directed and attached to Figma via Code Connect. So we're specifying that like these designs are using these components in our code library. We're also providing some more annotations about like where data should be coming from and behavior. And so what I'm going to do is I'm going to take this selection. I'm going to go ahead and copy that link. And we're going to open up a different window. So we have this vscode test. I'm going to switch over right here. Let me please remind me if everybody's able to see this.
Yeah, maybe if you could zoom at least one more level.
Let's do it.
That would be helpful. Yeah.
Cool.
Yeah. That's
And I'm going to go ahead and close that, open this, and do this. So this is our kind of like example app. This is also 100% visible to folks on Figma's GitHub. So you could do github.com/Figma/SDS, I believe is the URL. And I'm going to go ahead and run this right now. So npm run app dev. We're going to have this for locally. Let's see if we can open this up. So this is our demo instance, right? There's a lot of stuff here. These are just like the example components that we're using. For the purposes of this demo, I'm actually going to get rid of a lot of stuff here. So I'm going to get rid of this. We have our header, footer, and our demo component. Our demo component right now is actually empty. I'm going to go back to this. Once again, making sure that I'm selecting this. I go ahead and copy that link to the selection. So over here, I'm actually just going to have it. Can you implement my selected Figma design in demo.tsx? So again, still relatively simple prompt. This time I'm actually telling it where to put that entry in because this is part of an existing code base. I want to make sure that it's following the standards that I want to follow. And I'm going to go ahead and run that. So first thing you'll notice, it's using two references. In this code base, we have Copilot instructions that describes how to use our simple design system. This includes our development commands, what the live storybook is, even things like example usages and pitfalls. So we have like, pitfall number 1. So like things that we've noticed when we've kind of gone through this of like how we don't want things to happen. So we don't want these hard design values to be hard coded. We don't want to create custom layout CSS. We want to use our existing layout components. And so these guidelines will continue to inform our agent to make sure that they're following the code standards that we specify.
okay.
You can think about this a lot like design system documentation that you might have for your engineers. And now you're also providing that to your agents. Once again, we're seeing in our outputs, one thing that's slightly different here is that we're actually seeing references to the components that already exist. So we have our navigation pill component, we have our navigation component, and the URLs to where they exist in our code base. So as we go through, we'll even see this code connect snippet, which tells us that this particular component in the design has a code snippet attached to it. And so we're going to use that instead of just trying to build it from scratch.
Okay.
What that does is, once again, we go through that screenshot process, but what that does is it also means that our agent has to do less searching overall, right? Like it knows that which components that we're using. It searched for some of these components, but it knew exactly how to get use pricing. It knew exactly how to get pricing. It knew where all these other files were. And so even fewer tokens used for that searching process and a more efficient generation process.
Cool.
Now
so it gives
down here,
that additional context to like kind of
exactly
the point, right? Like we don't need to like spin trying
exactly
to figure it out.
exactly.
Yeah, we can get to it quicker.
Yep. And the more of that information that exists using things like Code Connect, and we're making it even easier to kind of get there, the better these outputs will continue to be. So I'm going to go ahead and look at our demo file. We'll see that we have something that's pretty close. I might have to make some slight adjustments, but this is actually looking pretty solid right now. So I'll keep that. This is our demo file. Why don't we just take a look at what our output is? So remember our design? This is our design, and this is here. And you'll notice there are some things that are slightly different.
Mm-hmm.
I do see the one thing that I normally do fix, which is we need another container here. So let me go ahead and just do that real quick. I'll close that flex and bring another container here. And then that should be good. Hopefully I didn't break anything. And then up here should be also center, I think. Let's check that out. Yeah, cool. So this is a lot closer to our original design. You'll also notice that the colors here aren't exactly the same as the colors in our output. And there's a good reason for that. And the reason is that we're using our design tokens, and our design tokens take into account light mode and dark mode. And by default, my computer is actually in dark mode. And so like if I go here and I change my display to light mode, you'll notice that all the colors switch and match that design exactly, because now we're showing the light mode variant.
Very nice.
I always love doing that demo. It's it's super slick.
Yeah. Well, I feel like that's it's just so visually, right? You see it right away. I feel like a lot of times when you do any demo with code or things like that, it's like sometimes it's hard to like really get the point of like this is what just happened. And so this is just such a great way to really like visually see.
Now, another thing that's happening here that again is only represented visually in the design, but not at all in code yet. But we mentioned that our data is in our use pricing model, is that the content here is coming from our database instead of coming from the design. So we have our beginner, advanced, and business tiers, and there's also logic for selecting these different business plans. So we have our current plan, we can upgrade to advanced, we can upgrade to business. And you'll notice that even if I go to yearly, I'm business already. So now it's telling me go annual instead of upgrade to business, or I can downgrade to advanced, or I can downgrade to beginner. And so this is the kind of thing that, again, this is the expertise that an engineer would be bringing, where making sure that the business logic is there. We're able to kind of bring that context into our prompts so that it matches how we think this is supposed to work in production code. And it's using the components that we've already given it to give us something that is way more representative of what real output would be. And so as an engineer, this also makes your life a lot easier in terms of you're able to kind of hand off a few more activities to your AI agents and then be able to kind of inspect like, okay, this is doing what I wanted to, this is using the rules that I told it to use, et cetera. And that's where that development expertise really comes in.
Yeah. I mean, I think one of the really cool things too is, you know, traditionally it was like you were a designer or you're an engineer. And I feel like this kind of blends that where you still have 100%. Your expertise, your corners, but now you kind of have these ways to gap where it's okay. If you made the design, like you're able to kind of go into the code a little bit by creating this or vice versa. If you're usually just like, oh, I don't know anything about design, but I'm, you know, the engineer, I'm doing the business logic to your point. It's a lot easier to kind of interact with that and see where things are being pulled from and just kind of help you bridge those gaps. I think that that's really cool to see how you aren't just constrained to your one area of expertise. It broadens your ability to touch other areas.
Exactly. And I was having this conversation with somebody recently where it's kind of almost like one of the biggest blockers for doing some more advanced work and like more quote unquote senior work was that there was always so much of a technical hurdle and so much of manual kind of labor to get to that point, right? Like you would always focus on the execution before like the architecture, just because like it needs to get built. And with these agents, you kind of have like a team of engineers for you that like, depending on how you train them, depending on how you prompt them, you're able to get the outputs that you need and go even further with what you started with the same amount of resources.
Very cool. Awesome. Is there anything else you'd like to show us, Akbar?
That kind of covers the gamut of what I wanted to show in the short round of the short kind of like demo series. But I do also want to say that I will be on the live stream next Thursday with a longer session, and I'll be going into showing off things like the Code Connect UI and how that works and how it makes it even easier for you to link your existing code components to get that same type of output that we saw in that second example. As well as showing off our Make MCP, which means that like if you're using Figma Make, which is our vibe coding tool that allows you to kind of start with a prompt and then kind of bring your designs in and continue to iterate and build something that's more like a production app, we can actually take that and take the output of that and bring that into your existing code base. So you might experiment with like a small component and you want to give it like a really fun and nice interaction, and then you want to bring that and bring it into your code base. That's what I'm going to show off next week. Awesome.
Okay. So yeah, today was like a nice little teaser of like an overview of what you can do, but we're diving deep next week. So make sure come back here where you're watching on the VS Code live stream, same time, 8 a.m. Pacific time next Thursday. What is that date? October 23rd. We'll be back here with Akbar.
There's one more thing that I'd love to show, which is just kind of like where people can kind of get some more information.
Yes, I was going to ask that.
Yeah. So for that SDS example that we just went through, that's publicly available on GitHub. And we're just going to do GitHub Figma/SDS. This is the URL. You can get not only that Figma design file, but also the entire code base. So you can run that same demo that we just did and it'll work. You'll have to do one piece of setup down here, which is getting that code connected. But all the instructions for that is there.
Awesome. Cool. We'll make sure. Oh, we just dropped some links in the chat.
Cool.
We'll make sure that all these links too are in the show notes too. If you come
And
back.
then finally, I wanted to talk about the MCP dev docs, which have been publicly available for like a couple of weeks now. This is where you can get all the information about using our MCP servers, both the remote server and local server installation, as well as even just kind of like some best practices. So like how you can structure your Figma file, how you can write better prompts, triggering specific tools. And this will also go into which tools are available in remote versus local, which by the time we hit GA, we're hoping to have full parity.
Very cool. All right. Well, thank you so much for sharing those docs. Yeah, like I said, we're dropping some of those links in the chat, and we'll have them in the show description, so you can go ahead and check those out as well if you come back on demand. But otherwise, like Akbar said, he'll be back here next week. So come back, bring all your questions, and come to see kind of that end-to-end flow to really dive deep into what the Figma MCP server can do. All right. Well, with that, thank you so much, Akbar, for being here today, and we're excited to have you back next week. We'll see you soon.
Thanks for having me.
Cool. All right, everyone. That brings us to the end of our release live stream. It was another great one. Thank you, chat, so much, as always, for being here. Thank you to all of our contributors for helping make vscode what it is. And we just really appreciate all of you here. Couple of quick closing remarks. Make sure to follow us on our various social media accounts. So we're on X, on LinkedIn. Make sure to subscribe to our YouTube channel. That way you can see things like these live streams, get notifications for them. And then we do a ton of really great on-demand content. Like we just wrapped up a prompt-driven development series that you can go and just see all different ways that you can use prompts to really drive your development. And then just one more plug for GitHub Universe, which is just around the corner in a couple weeks. Make sure to register virtually. It's totally free, but you're going to be seeing a lot of cool VS Code stuff. So I'll just leave it at that. You're going to want to tune in. But otherwise, thank you so much for being here, y'all. We'll see you next time.